Not too many South Africans have been keen to put money into this economy. We saw President Cyril Ramaphosa appeal, 18 months ago for $100 billion worth of investment to come into South Africa. And that was all going quite nicely until January's load shedding put the brakes on that particular project. Maybe it'll come back at some point now that Tito Mboweni has put his new economic policy into the public domain. But Marc has been pouring money into bricks and mortar in South Africa for the last decade. Do people challenge your sanity in an environment with super low growth where property rights are being challenged, not unnecessarily, but being challenged, where you keep buying and developing and improving? And I mean, this property where we are in the middle of Sandton, it's called the Ivy. You bought it, you run it for 8 years, and now poured an additional 22 million rand into refurbishing it. I mean, that's taking a serious long-term view.
Yes, my bankers, my shareholders, my friends, everyone challenges me. And what we've done since those early days, our values haven't changed in that we still watch the downside first and the upside second. So every time we're investing quite carefully and saying, what's the worst case scenario in regard to our investment? And I think that those questions are getting tougher and tougher to answer. But really, we still have the core philosophy of the tough times create the best opportunities. We're seeing it in all of the properties that we're buying. We've just bought property in Nelspruit and Bloemfontein, as example. The best sites in those locations, you could not get them 2 years ago. Anytime I tried to approach the sellers of those sites, they would laugh at me. They would say, quote, unrealistic prices, and I'd say it was not economic to build. Now, all of a sudden, not only are they talking to me, but they are being very realistic about the price expectation. And together with a tax incentive that the country's done in terms of Section 12J, which has provided inexpensive funding for hotels, together with that, we're creating the opportunity to build the best hotels in the best locations in South Africa.
And now, Section 12J, for anybody who doesn't know what it is a section of the Income Tax Act. And it says that you can get a tax deduction for taking risk with your money. And same sort of ways you put money into a retirement annuity, you get a similar tax deduction by putting into defined projects and schemes. Job creation, investment in the country, small businesses. How much money have you raised as a 12J? Because the entire landscape now, I think last year was at 3 billion. It doubled into this year at about 6 billion. Do you have a healthy chunk of that?
Over 4 years, we've raised 600 million rand, all of which nearly all, we've got 130 million to deploy. All the rest went into hotels that created the jobs, that did the trick. So, some of the things that the government's doing today are really excellent in terms of creating jobs. The construction jobs that come out of the hotel sector, incredible. And then the ongoing jobs in terms of, the operation of the hotel is very, very employee intensive. And then a step further is that hotels bring international income into the country. So that side has really, really worked, and we would not have built these hotels if we didn't have Section 12J.
Okay, so Section 12J then has been pivotal, one, in encouraging South Africans to invest in their own economy. Some people may have done it as part of a tax revolt, of course, looking for ways to pay less tax. But money is tied in to investments for at least 5 years. I mean, that's the deal of 12J. You can't simply, it's not like an ATM, popping some money in and hoping to get it out tomorrow should your circumstances change. This requires a commitment then from capital in South Africa, doesn't it?
So, I mean, that was our biggest fight, raising money, is people were saying, no, I'm going to take my money offshore or I'm going to put it in 12J. There was no other investment alternative as I saw it in the last 4 years. And the ones who took their money offshore did incredibly well. I mean, realistically, the rand's depreciated since then. The economy's struggled. The stock market's been stagnant.
Well, if you put your money into the S&P 4 years ago, you've had a dollar benefit and you've had a huge uplift in terms of stock markets versus a JSE, which has gone sideways.
Exactly. But if you invested in 12J, the guys did incredibly well following us and investing in 12J. They've co-invested essentially into our hotels together with the government of South Africa through tax relief. And what we've done on our side is we've said we'll take the risk to a large extent and align our interests with them as investors. And that that owner-operator approach that we've taken to the hotel sector has meant that we're the leading hotel group in South Africa in terms of performance.
Now, talk to me about that, because one looks at City Lodge's results and their occupancies are below 60%. And they're kind of in a similar market to you in that it's business travel. It's short-term. It's short-term. People go for a night, maybe two, and there's a lot less of that sort of overnight business travel now as companies cut back. So they've lost out on that. They lose out on the weekends. You've perhaps got a bit of weekend trade because people do 2 or 3 week leases from you. But occupancies are low. Business travel, certainly internally in South Africa, is low. You call yourself the best performers in the market. Elaborate on that.
So, yeah, it's a mix of combination of the different stock that we have. So we have the apartments, as you say, people stay longer with us. They stay through the weekends. That shields our occupancy, which in business hotels always takes a dive on the weekends. But it's mostly the owner-operator approach that an entrepreneur takes, that I stay up very late at night thinking about how are we going to fill these hotels and moving and shaking and hustling to outperform. That's been the core of our roots and something that I've fought. Now we have 550 employees and another 250 in outsourced employees. And notwithstanding that, I fight very hard to maintain that culture of entrepreneurship. And that is why we are more successful, as I see it, than other hotel groups, is we're literally just hustling very hard to fill our hotel rooms.
We're talking to Marc Washburger, who is the founder and chief executive of Capital Hotels. A couple of months ago, we spoke to the local managing director of McDonald's in South Africa, who was opening a branch in Putadi-Chaba in Kwakwa. People are making investments all over the country. Small scale at this stage. But Marc Washburger talking just a moment ago about Nelspruit and Bloemfontein, hardly the epicenter of business travel. We'll talk about that, about confidence in the future, in a future that you can't see. How do you invest money into that future? More on that in a moment.